Hi, this is my final exam video. So number 1, please describe your strongest speech. My strongest speech was my informative speech. I think this was my strongest speech because I maintained eye contact with my audience throughout the entire presentation. I used visual aids in order to get more information to my audience, and I provided a narrative to real life in my audience at the start of my speech. One of my classmates that I felt had a strong speech was from Erin Falk on her second informative speech. Some of her strengths are her organization with her main points. Another strength is her knowledge of the topic and her incorporation of her outside sources. She maintained eye contact with the camera, but not as much with the physical audience that was there. I think the main thing that she could have improved on was that she should have introduced herself and her topic before she started her speech. For the second question, for my story speech, I used the chronological pattern of organization. The chronological pattern is an arrangement of information in a time sequence, and that's on page 75 of the textbook. This organization pattern aided in the presentation of my speech because in my speech I talked about how I always wanted to be older than I was, and I wanted to grow up too fast. In order for me to have fully and effectively portrayed my story, I had to tell the audience about my life history in a chronological time order. I also used the extemporaneous format of speaking where I only had a few notes on my outline to help guide my speech, and I spoke as if it were spontaneous. Number 3. For my informative speech, I chose to do a definition speech format over the foreign accent syndrome. A definition speech is an oral presentation that gives an extended definition of a concept, and that's on page 278. An extended definition is a rich, full elaboration of the meaning of a term, also on page 278. I use this technique for my speech because not many people have heard of the foreign accent syndrome, and therefore they probably do not know what it means. I gave the scientific definition of the syndrome and then expanded on the definition to make it simpler and easier for my audience to understand. Number 4. Monroe's motivated sequence is a series of steps designed to propel a listener toward accepting the speaker's proposition on page 301. This sequence involves 5 steps. For my persuasive speech, I use these steps in the order provided. The first step is attention. For my speech, my attention getter was my story of when I was eating sushi, and it had occurred to me that in 15 years I may not be able to eat sushi anymore because plastic waste is going to kill out marine life. The second step is the need, in which I showed my audience that there is a serious problem with plastic waste in our oceans, and we need to take action to keep our marine animals alive and safe. The third step is satisfaction, in which I satisfied the need by presenting a solution to keeping the marine animals alive by recycling to my audience. The fourth step is visualization, where I handed out pictures to my audience with proof of how dangerous plastic is to our oceans and animals. And lastly, step 5, I requested my audience to take action by recycling, and I provided them with information on how to recycle. Some additional techniques that I used for my persuasive speech was the technique of speeding to motivate action. This is an oral presentation that tries to impel listeners to take action, and that's on page 299. I also used visual aids, as I mentioned earlier, where I passed them among the members of my audience. And I also talked about the pictures while the audience was looking at those pictures. I tried to maintain as much eye contact as I could while stating statistics and facts from my credible sources. My public speaking skills have improved by maintaining eye contact with my audience, by being able to calm my nerves, and the learning of the basics to an oral presentation. Selecting my specific purpose, which is the precise goal that a speaker wants to achieve on page 80, and selecting my central idea, which is the key concept of the speech, page 82. These terms were the foundation of every speech, and it is really important to understand them and be able to identify them for each presentation I gave. Also, being able to select a topic was kind of hard for me at the beginning, but by the examples that it gave in the book, I was able to start narrowing down by using, by brainstorming and those ideas. Number 7, some areas that I could have improved on. I think I could have been more prepared for my speeches. I should have spent more time rehearsing them so I could know what I was going to say next in order to make them more extemporaneous. Number 8, in the future, I think this class will come in hand with oral presentations as I continue my education. Beyond that, I know when I get a job offer after I finish school, I will have to give presentations to clients or other associates, and the skills that I learned in this class will really help in those presentations. This course has heuristic value in not only continuing my education, but also in interviews and even just socializing with others in general. I can use this information I learned in this class in opportunities in the future in many cases. I learned how to tell a good narrative, how to inform people about certain topics, and how to persuade people to take action in life. These elements will be carried with me throughout the rest of my education and career.